Well guys, we're coming up on the third month of Delta Force's open beta as we head into February of 2025. The game was released in its early access state on Steam all the way back on December 4th of last year, and since then we've gotten 2 seasons of content, a couple new maps, new weapons, new player mechanics, and a whole new arena-style game mode. At this point, I'm not sure if even the developers know what to call the game's current state, as it honestly feels like a full PC release with microtransactions, anti-cheat, and a full-on live service. I'm not saying it's a bad state to be in, it just feels weird, as the game is missing some huge features in one area while getting delays in the other, but while also running a fully functioning live service with hundreds of microtransactions and loot crates. The game is a mosaic of great core mechanics, each of which have some real thought put into them, but while also featuring gaping holes where things like the campaign, controller compatibility, mobile release, and cross-platform support are supposed to be going. In a lot of ways, we're sorta getting the dessert before the main course has even begun. I'm over here collecting achievements, browsing limited-time cosmetics, and trucking through the player progression system, while other fans are eagerly awaiting the game to leave its quote-unquote beta. But I say all that to exemplify how convoluted the current state of Delta Force can feel, especially to a casual fan. So in today's video, let's quickly recap the current state of Delta Force and its production as we enter February of 2025. Like always, I love bringing you guys these videos, and I need your help to keep the algorithm happy, so drop a like, hit subscribe, and let's talk all things Delta Force. Kicking things off, in all honesty, I don't really know what to even call Delta Force's current state. While the game released back in December under the guise of an open PC beta, the developers over at Team Jade have since dropped the name beta, and are simply calling it by its full title, Delta Force plus the current season. With that being said, Delta Force is currently on Season 2 after the game launched into Season 1 Genesis. Both Genesis and Season 2 Starfall brought battle passes, paid cosmetics, holiday events, and tournaments, all of which has really helped flesh out the game's community and live service. And along with Season 2 Starfall, the game also received 2 new maps, updates to environments like Zero Dam, 3 new weapons, 1 new operator, the limited time edition of Capture the Flag, and new mechanics like fortifications and dolphin diving. Season 2 also introduces players to Hot Zone, a limited-time arena game mode where 3 teams of 3 face off in a round-based no-respawn battle, a rather fun new expression of the operations game mode, body armor and all, but we'll see where they take it. And on the flip side of that, players also saw the addition of PvE content in the form of operation-style raids, which present a new pathway to earn cosmetics and gear. Now, while the first operation, titled Operation Serpentine, isn't anything to write home about, it's at least a nice offering to fans of PvE who are looking for something more grindy with a decent set of rewards. But the big takeaway is that all of these new additions make me confident in this game's live service. Instead of resting on their laurels, the devs have been rather proactive in bringing in new mechanics, changing up vanilla maps, and handling a lot of bugs. Now, to be fair, by the time a lot of this content reaches us, it's already been on the Chinese build of the game for several weeks. But in my eyes, that's essentially just a huge playtest before it hits global servers. Now, moving on from live service, the game's performance is currently in a very solid state from my experience. While I do see comments reaching out to the devs about instability, frame drops, or errors, I rarely encounter these issues other than the occasional frame drop while traversing quickly in operations, or the occasional lag spike that's seemingly been clearing up. Perhaps these issues are more present in Warfare, whereas I'm almost entirely an operations guy, but one thing I do know for sure is that Warfare's matchmaking is horrific. Now, I'd recommend watching Ender's video on this. He has way more credibility on the subject than myself, but ultimately it seems that Team Jade is just outright lying about their matchmaking algorithm and how it causes players, especially high-skill players, to wait forever for games only to be put into lobbies that are well over 100 ping. Enders, who's on the American East Coast, is constantly being matched to European lobbies and having to wait several minutes per search. And while I'm nowhere near as sweaty on mouse and keyboard, I also see issues where the game teases me, telling me the lobby is almost full. However, I end up waiting 5 minutes to get into a lobby of less than 20 people time and time again. But at the end of the day, just know two things. First, the game definitely seems to feature some sort of heavy-handed matchmaking algorithm. With so many competitors doing this, there's no way that Tencent's new premier Battlefield competitor gets away without some sort of engagement-optimized matchmaking. Secondly, aside from possibly terrible ping, know that Warfare is still totally playable, just with extra wait times and the knowledge in the back of your head that Team Jade seems to almost certainly be lying about how it matches its players. But otherwise, knock yourself out.
Launching an assault on objective Bravo 1.
Now, speaking of hardware, let's move on to the state of multi-platform support. Not too much has changed here over the last month, with some fans still believing a console release of some capacity is still in the cards by the end of this fiscal quarter ending in March, just like I had predicted. However, like I discussed in another video, Team Jade has been very quiet on both controller and console support since the beginning of the year, even going as far as ignoring questions about it during their Season 2 Q&A. Compare this to just a few weeks ago, and the devs were active on Twitter, hyping up console support and responding to fans. However, now the devs are getting berated with questions about console support after every single post, yet they won't say anything about it. Meanwhile, the mobile version has officially been delayed, now reading April 24th on the App Store, with testing starting soon. Overall, the current state of this game's multi-platform promises versus Team Jade's silence on the matter while pushing paid cosmetics is ruffling feathers, to say the least. The game has been in playtesting for the better part of a year at this point and just hit Season 2, yet the devs are quietly backpedaling and delaying big promises. And speaking of delays, this brings me on to our next topic, the Black Hawk Down campaign. First things first here, I'm very excited for this game mode. A retelling of the Black Hawk Down movie through a remaster of the classic Delta Force game is such a refreshing, gritty return to storytelling that so many studios are turning away from, where they instead chase new, more modern stories that they can profit from. Meanwhile, Team Jade is resurrecting one of the most influential narratives in modern military history through the lens of Unreal Engine 5, with great features like co-op. But while I'm truly excited for this edition, I'm afraid we'll have to wait a little longer, because during the reveal, Team Jade showcased the mode, yet confirmed it's being delayed. The original promise was for the campaign to launch with Season 2, but there were also rumors that controller support would have been included along with it, so we'll have to sit tight yet again. Now, aside from these big ticket items, Delta Force and Team Jade have been doing a good job engaging with their fan base on social media, where they've been hosting bigger and bigger tournaments, sharing player clips, and responding to comments, which has been a big change for a lot of us Battlefield fans. With so much content, daily events, and new ways to play, whether it's the new arena mode Hot Zone or the game's first PvE raid, the game has been pulling in more and more players, where it's now hit a new peak player count of over 130,000. The game, while healthy, needs to keep its foot on the gas and continue to push out the last of these fundamental updates. If you're on console, mobile, or awaiting controller support, just know there's a handful of things that are officially delayed, and I wouldn't be shocked if consoles are pushed back further to compete with Battlefield's upcoming announcements as we near summer. In my eyes, when they do announce console, that'll mark the official end of the early access preview, and the game will sort of be reborn as Delta Force 1.0. But being a $400 billion company in charge of publishing this game, I'd say they need to do whatever they can before this game hits early access purgatory, where players start checking out while the developers slowly sunset promised features. For reference, EA is less than 1/10 the size of Tencent, and think about the bar we hold them to. Team Jade and Tencent Games have a game with killer potential, and a lot of that is already being realized in its early access. Let's just hope it can keep the momentum and get into as many players' hands as possible, like they promised. But after 2 months of early access, Delta Force is incredibly well positioned to continue growing. Its live service is already more promising than most, and while the game can be a little overwhelming, it's refreshing to have so much choice in a free-to-play package. So here's to hoping the game continues on a good trajectory, and we have a real competitor to this year's Call of Duty and Battlefield, as some new competition would certainly be refreshing for the market. But like usual, drop those comments below and tell me what you're most excited for with the future of Delta Force. For all things Battlefield and Delta Force, stay tuned and subscribe, and as always, thank you guys for watching.